Alright, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return. And as always, I would like to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And welcome to another series of quick and important information being brought to you by the spirit and through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. This is the brother Yashamai coming back at you with another video, giving you a quick update. The Senate passes a massive $858 billion bill, which is based on the NDAA. Now, for those who are not familiar with the NDAA is an acronym for the National Defense Authorization Act. And this bill was first passed when Obama was in office. And you might ask, what does this bill do? Well, the National Defense Authorization Act basically deems everybody on the soils of America as dissidents. If you don't know what a dissident is would be considered somebody who is rebelling or fighting against the government or a higher authority, which 2nd Esdras chapter 15 verse 16 goes into that, sedition among men. But basically, the National Defense Authorization Act deems everybody on the soils of America as dissidents or possible terrorists. Now, and again, this bill was first passed during the Obama administration, when Obama was in office. So here, now we see an update to this National Defense Authorization Bill. And the Senate invested $858 billion into this National Defense Authorization Act. So later on down the line, this will justify the United States of America implementing draconian or harsh measures to deal with the people on the soils of America. Now, recently, there's been a lot of talks in the news about gun bans and seizing people guns. Well, according to biblical prophecy, these race wars and these civil wars are going to be fought with guns. So these proud patriot Americans, these proud patriot Americans, they're not going to just quietly hand over their guns. No, they're going to fight for their rights, right? Because that's in their the Second Amendment of their Constitution, the right to bear arms. So, just based on that Second Amendment alone, the right to bear arms, people's going to fight for their right to hold their guns. Especially with all these staged shootings and all of these other, events that the government has been setting up through the CIA. All these staged shootings is all for the government to justify banning guns in America, and people are not going to go for it. A lot of people is waking up to the fact that these shootings are staged and that they're really just aiming to pass gun bills to take away people's guns. Which, going back to the book of Genesis, the 27th chapter, Esau, okay, who was a so-called white person, Esau, okay, he was blessed with the sword. Now, in modern day terms today, the sword would be known as the gun. Okay. So the descendants of Esau, which will be the so-called white people today, their blessing is what? The gun. That's their blessing. And here you got the government that's passing bills to take away their blessing. So, like I said, these proud so-called white Americans, they're not going to just quietly hand over their guns. So that's going to lead to what? It's going to lead to civil war. It's going to lead to controversy. It's going to lead to protests and riots. It's going to lead to higher tensions. And like it says in Matthew, the 24th chapter, the love of many shall wax cold. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Now if we come over here to Isaiah, right? Isaiah chapter 10 verse 1. Excuse me. It says, woe unto them, unto who? The government, that decree unrighteous decrees. Because at the end of the day, the American government is the one that had the power and the control to pass all these different legislations and bills, which that's what a decree is. When you look up the word decree means a decision or a law. So, woe unto them that decide unrighteous laws, which a legislation would be considered a law. A bill would be considered a law. You see? And that right grievousness, right? That right, because, you know, but before they pass a legislation or a bill, they sign their name off on it, okay? So that right grievousness which they have prescribed. And ultimately, these laws, these bills and legislations, they're being pushed and passed to further put the people into further oppression. Okay? And ultimately, that's what the U.S. government fears. They fear the vast majority of the people having guns. Because, you see, even the government knows there's more people on the soils of America than there is those that operate in the military or in the National Guard or the DHS. You know, they're greatly outnumbered. So that's more guns facing towards them. And they don't want to take that risk. So that's why they're aiming to take away people's guns. You know? But you're not going to stop prophecy, because the scriptures say that these civil wars and race wars are going to be fought with guns. And to further prove that, let's go to 2nd Esdras, which is a part of the Old Testament of the Holy Scriptures, okay? Which Esdras is in the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is a part of the Old Testament. 2nd Esdras chapter 15, verse 15. Well, in verse 14, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, right? Revelation 12 and 12. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. So 2nd Esdras chapter 15, verse 15, it says, for the sword in their destruction draweth nigh. Right, the sword in their destruction is talking about the intercontinental ballistic missiles, which can carry up to multiple nuclear warheads at a time. And the one people, though now, first and foremost, we know this is talking about race wars. The one people is talking about the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians, which are the Israelites. Okay, the one people. So they're going to stand up and fight against another. Who's the another people? The Edomites, which are the so-called white people. Okay? And swords, what's the modern day sword? The gun. And guns in their hands. Now, on the other hand, we know that 2nd Esdras chapter 15, verse 15 is also talking about civil war. Right? So woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword in their destruction draweth nigh. And the one people, these citizens, these civilians here in America, shall stand up and fight against another. Shall fight against who? These the National Guard, the UN troops, because the government is also going to be sending UN troops after people who refuse to give up their guns. So it's going to be these American citizens that's going to be fighting against the National Guard, the UN troops. They're going to be fighting against DHS, which we know that DHS has been stacking up on ammo, right? And a matter of fact, I remember what was it, 4 years ago? DHS, basically, there was an article that came out where they said DHS had stocked up on so much ammunition that they literally have enough bullets for each single person on the soils of America. Okay? So it says, and the one people shall stand up and fight against another, right? So these people here in America, these citizens, they're going to fight against these National Guards and these DHS troops, the IRS. They're going to fight against the UN troops, the militarized policemen, and swords and guns in their hands. Okay? But before the Civil War, right? For there shall be sedition among men. So before the Civil War will occur, as you may know, there's going to be protests and riots, which is going to act as a warning from the people over here on the soils of America to the government not to try to forcibly take their guns away from them, right? So there's going to be, because what is a sedition? A sedition is a uprise or a rebellion against a government or a higher authority. So people's going to be out there protesting, rallying. They're going to be rioting, you know, You can't take this or that from me. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. So people's gonna be out there protesting and rioting and giving warning to the government, like don't do it, don't you try it, But as you may know, the government's not going to listen. They're going to continue to try to take away people's guns, and it's going to result in civil war. So before the Civil War, there's going to be sedition among men. There's going to be protests and riots and rallies among men and invading one another, because when there's protests and rallies, what's going on? People are invading the streets in large numbers, holding up protest signs. You see, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. So ain't nobody going to care what the president got to say. The princes represent the lower operatives that operate under the main government, such as the Senate, the Congress, the House of Representatives, and then you have your judicial system. Ain't nobody going to care what these minor governments have to say. Ain't nobody going to care what the Democrat or the Republican have to say. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Okay? The course of whose actions? The course of the government's actions shall stand in their power. Because at the end of the day, the government is the one with the higher authority and more power. So these gun ban laws is going to be enforced upon the people. Okay? So the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Okay? Verse 17, it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Okay? And how come people is not going to be able to leave their city? Because during that time when there's protests and riots going on, martial law is going to be implemented, whether if it's through the National Guard, militarized policemen, or the UN troops, which the UN troops consist of military personnel or mercenaries, military mercenaries from different countries. So you have Arabians that are a part of the UN army. You got East Indian troops that are a part of the UN army. You got Russian troops that are a part of the UN army. You got African troops that are a part of the UN army. You got Chinese and Japanese and North Korean troops that are a part of the UN army. You got South Korean troops that are a part of the UN army. You see? You have Hawaiian troops that are a part of the UN army. You have European troops that are a part of the UN army. So it's going to get messy out here. But with that, I'm gonna say shalom. It's on to the next one.